Hey guys, welcome to the Primed Fatherhood podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Condi, and this is episode 11. Outdoor Vitals is an ultralight backpacking brand that was started by Tayson Whittaker about 5 years ago. He has since grown it into a thriving 7-figure business while simultaneously starting a family. Now he and his wife have 2 awesome kids, and he has a lot of great knowledge to share with us. Tayson and I have become really close friends over the last 5 years, and I'm excited to pull back the curtains and give you a look into his well-run company and his shrewd business sense to help you, hopefully, identify more opportunities to provide better for your families. We have answered the call. We are committed to a greater purpose. We are fathers. Past achievements do not guarantee future success. We will prime ourselves often to navigate each new challenge. We are capable, brave, and relentless. We will remain undaunted. I'm excited to have you on, Tayson. We've been friends for quite a while now and run businesses simultaneously, and I've always been impressed with your ability to take new knowledge and ideas and put them into action. And watching you do that with Outdoor Vitals has been really cool. So why don't you just give us a little rundown on what Outdoor Vitals is and how it came about, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so Outdoor Vitals is an ultralight backpacking company brand. Essentially, we design outdoor ultralight backpacking gear, so backpacks, tents, sleeping bags. We've gotten into some apparel, so puffy jackets, and we just launched a pant this year, raised some money on Kickstarter with that. But yeah, we're just trying to build like the next generation of something like a North Face or a Patagonia is kind of the long-term hope, but very technical focused is more of our niche. Me and my lead designer that I brought on about a year and a half ago, we just really geek out on the details of products and fibers, and so we just love that up. But so yeah, and then as far as the backstory, a little bit on that, started it in 2014 as kind of a side hustle. At that point, I was working a full-time job. I actually graduated in May of 2014 with a finance degree, and then I had a full-time job lined up, and I was doing that. And then on the side, I had filed for a business name, and I'd ordered some samples from some sleeping bag suppliers in Asia, and kind of chose a sample and literally sold my sample on Amazon. And then from there, just went and bought 3 and sold those, and I bought 5 thinking that was a lot and sold those, and just kind of kept rolling that until I remember like in November of that year, I bought 50 units, and they allowed me to, instead of being samples at that point, they were like, okay, like if you bought 50, it'd be your unit. We could put your logo on it, which I designed a logo. It was absolutely horrendous. If you ever go look that up, and bought 50 and man, they sold in like a week, and I thought I had like a month's worth of supply. I just couldn't fathom it, And so yeah, after that, I was kind of off to the races, and I literally just kept doing it just like that, in the evening times, and whenever I could find time to work on my side hustle, I'd do that until about a year after that, in November of 2015, I was working my day job, and I went home and I realized, I made more money on my side hustle in a single day than the entire month at my day job. And I was like, I think it's time to quit my day job. So quit it, and then just off to the races, just really got things lined out with vision and what we want out of the company and what was possible. And just been working ever since. So
that's awesome. So to follow up on that, do you feel like you quit your day job at the right time, or do you feel like you should have held on longer or quit sooner?
For me, I should have quit sooner, because as soon as I quit my day job, the revenue and stuff like that started to climb a lot faster, because there was just things I wasn't able to get to. But that was fueled in large part because the biggest thing the company needed was cash. So if I would have quit, I would have had to start paying myself, what my day job was paying to try to live the same quality of life or similar. And so I was always like, man, if I quit working, that's cash that's not going into the business, because I was trying to save every penny. I was budgeting like crazy, making sure my wife wasn't spending any extra money, just really hard on things so that I could take any extra money we had and put it into the business to buy more product. Because my problem was I would sell out of my product way before I could get more, before I could afford more. And so that was the biggest thing. And that's why I held on so long. But yeah, once I did quit, revenues increased and we were able to, I don't know, we just found things. Like I went from like being me part-time in say October of 2015 to me hiring 2 employees in March of 2016. So in like 6 months, I went from no full-time employees to 3 full-time employees.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like of my friends who are running businesses and the businesses that I'm privy to the inside view of, you run yours more lean than anyone else. And I think that's awesome. But where does that kind of conservative mindset come from?
I think it comes a lot from my background. My parents were always, I don't think they've ever spent $1 over what they should have in their life on like any purchase ever. And that served them well. They've accumulated a lot over time. But they still kind of live that lifestyle. And I always try to get them to spend money. I'm like, you guys have done so well for so long, try to live life a little bit more in the moment. But that's really ingrained in me is, follow a budget. It's math. If it doesn't line up, there's no such thing as fake money. Right. And that's a big thing that I can't stand with the current like society, right? Is people will run businesses at losses all in the name of growth. And then that creates value. And I'm like, that's not creating value. In my mind, that doesn't really create value, like a true lasting value. So that's a part of me is like, I have to turn a profit. I have to create value and have an impact. I have to, if I don't turn a profit, I also can't, take part in giving back programs that I want to take part in. So there's that. The other part was, I think, driven by the actual company. When you're a physical product business, you need cash to grow. And I've always been able to oversell what I had to supply to sell. That was a trend that would just happen over and over and over. So I would run it so lean because, why hire more employees per se when all I need is more product to meet that. And then once we hit that cap, then I'll bring on more employees. And so just always ran it lean. And I just always feel better running it lean as far as stress management. And I could never run like a VC startup out of, San Francisco or something like that. I couldn't sleep at night, but people do, right? They take on these big amounts of money and they're able to essentially spend it without knowing the outcomes. And to me, that's never been a thing. I've always been line upon line. Before I started this company, as a kid, I thought I was going to be in real estate. It's just such a straight path to success. So it was like, you buy one house, that cash flows, the numbers work, and then you take that money and you take it to the next level and you just build line upon line upon line. And so that, I think it just all works into how I like to run the company is, we build it first. We don't assume it first.
Yeah. I love that. It seems like it's funny that you say you were the one trying to get your parents to spend money, because it's usually me trying to get you to spend money when it comes to dirt bikes and things like that. But I want to talk a little bit more in depth about your decision-making process. Let's talk first about career and your business and how you balance the demands of the business with the demands of your family.
So, demands of the business versus demands of my family. That one has been a give and take, and I wish that I could say it was always balanced. But like I mentioned in the beginning, I was working my 40 hours at my day job, and then I was coming home, and I had to find, at least another 20 hours a week somewhere to put into the side hustle. Sometimes it felt like more because it's something that never left my mind, even if I wasn't actively working on it. So for at least 2-3 years, it was 60 plus hour weeks at least, trying to get this up and rolling. And after we had our first kid, I put a hard and fast rule. It's just like, no, I've got to work 40 hours. Like there's no more of this. That always also helped because, at that point I'm doing it full time, but I definitely had a hard and fast rule at that point where I was just, okay, 40 hours is it. I can't take any more. And then ever since then, that's kind of been the goal. I'd like to continue to cut that back a little bit by just optimizing and being more proficient. But my goal is to be able to come home from work and have what I call sacred hours. And I didn't make that up. I actually stole that from, I think it was Russell Brunson. But basically, from the time I get home to the time my kids go to bed, I don't want to worry or think about work. I want to have super dedicated time with them. And then from there, like if I have to, I can work after that. But what I found is when I implemented that, I didn't want to get back into work side. I wanted to then take that time to spend with my wife and work on us and have fun with her and get that dedicated time when we don't have the kids jumping all over us and distracting us full time. And so then it became this different thing of, okay, if I don't have any extra time now, like now it's all, like I have to get it all done in the workday, then what? And, when you put time constraints on things, you find ways to get it done. And so I feel more efficient than I've ever felt. And I'm working sometimes I love and flow. I take vacations, I take time, but at the same time, there's other times when I'll work 9-10 hour days but I'll preface that by saying that I still I'll get home by 5 at the latest but I'll start my day at 5, or something like that to make up for that balance. Because running a business, it's tough. I mean, it is consuming. You take home stress. You have stress that you don't realize you're even carrying sometimes. And I wish that I had done it perfect all the time, but I've slowly, I think, worked into a position where I get a lot of really dedicated time with my kids. I don't feel like they're lacking at all compared to, other households, friends, families, whatever that I see. And, but yet we're still able to continue the growth of the company and provide for all of our employees and see that brand continue to develop.
That's awesome. So that made me think of another question there, but I want to kind of go back first and preface. You're running a business that's quite scalable and allows you to do most of your work through online sales and marketing and things like that. And so I think that allows you to run your hours the way that you do, right? But if you were running a service business, then you would be at the mercy of getting the service performed for the customer. So I know guys who are working, double that amount of hours and trying to be with their family. And that's not necessarily a comfortable place to be or where you should try to be. But I also know that you chose the business you did because it allowed for that kind of a lifestyle and that kind of an opportunity. For those
completely, I wasn't interested in anything that wasn't scalable.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And for those who are either wanting to start their own business or who are wanting to start a side hustle that they can bring in some more income for their family in order to make ends meet or get ahead a little bit, what do you think are the smart businesses that are scalable or that allow you to protect your time versus the ones that end up taking all of your time or requiring more resources than is feasible?
Yeah. I'd say a few things here. I love to try to look at the big picture. I feel like I've always been able to just look farther ahead than most of my peers, right? So like I look at friends and stuff I went to college with, and I went through college way faster than them, and I never changed my major. I just always had a clear path of what I wanted to do, and I think so much of that came because I'm just a dreamer on some senses. But a part of being a dreamer is you put the pieces together early and farther out, and so then everything comes back. And one of my favorite quotes is that hindsight is 20/20, right? 20/20 vision. Looking backwards, you can always tell what you did right and what you did wrong. But people don't realize that same mentality can play forward. So if I can sit down and draw out whatever it is, whatever I want to have happen in 5 years. Like if I was living my best life in 5 years, I'm going to have built a dream house and I'm going to be working these hours and I'm going to be traveling this much. And you map that all out and then you look backwards from there and start to design backwards. So much of those pieces can then fall in place. It's not a mystery anymore. It's a straight line almost. I say straight line, but it's more like a jagged line that you can figure out though, because you have the same end goal. It's kind of similar to like when you're if you've ever mowed a lawn, if you're mowing a big lawn and you just like put your head down and try to go in a straight line, you'll get to the other end, you'll turn around, you'll look back, and it's just this completely jagged line. But if instead, when you start that line, if you look all the way across the yard to a certain item and you steer that lawnmower at that item that entire time, you'll turn around and you'll have a straight line. And then from there, you can map that back and forth. But so for some reason, I've always just kind of had that mentality of looking a little bit farther ahead and then coming back and putting those pieces and having them fall into place. I'm going to lose the second part of this question here, or the answer here. Remind me.
So I think that you hit on that a lot, was just kind of what was your decision-making process for what makes a good business for someone who is either trying to start their own business or start a side hustle for themselves to bring in a little more cash.
Yes. So that's the other thing that I love to do, is by looking ahead and trying to pinpoint an opportunity. I love to look at trends and basically I always talk about hitching up my wagon to the right horse. When we were looking at what website builder to use, right? We had WordPress and Shopify and Squarespace and these different ones. And I told my team, I said, we're not looking at actually any of these other ones because they're not on the table for me. Because if you look at the growth, the trend, everything that's out there, it's all Shopify, right? Like everything is being built for that. It's trending the right way. We want to be hooked up to that horse because that horse is going places. Mm-hmm. So when I was looking at my business, it was, okay, what's trending right now? Well, I'd spent some time in Asia. I lived in Malaysia and Singapore, and I just saw these opportunities in Asia. And I thought, man, okay, there's an opportunity right there. There's a trend in manufacturing, whatever it is. And then also there was just the online stuff was getting bigger and bigger, right? This is 2011, 12, 13, I'm just seeing all these opportunities and I'm like, okay, let's see how we can marry these. I just took two different trends, the way that things were trending, online shopping. Looking back now, you're like, oh, online shopping was always a thing. It's like, it really wasn't. If I could have started my business in 2008, it would be triple the size it is right now because anything was selling online. You put it online, it was just selling. You could put anything on Amazon. And I need to preface that. I didn't go back. Like we started on Amazon. Amazon's a very small portion of what we do now. But anyways, I could see these trends. And so what I would advise people that are interested in starting a side hustle is look for trends and look for trends about which you know something about. So for me, I was a big outdoor guy. I always loved spending time outdoors. And so something I knew I could be passionate about and involved with and stay on topic. And then I looked for other opportunities. So for me, it was direct to consumer. Direct to consumer was another trend. So I basically started stacking up these trends and then these opportunities of areas that I knew something about. And that aligned to make a really great opportunity. So when people come to me and they say, I want to start a business, I start with, okay, well, what do you know? And what are you really interested in? Like, that you can stay on topic and stay focused for long enough, because that's another huge component of this. And then you start to say, okay, well, what's changing and shaking up in this industry that can create an opportunity? Is there any trends? Let's say you want to be a plumber, like what are the trends in plumbing? How could you improve that? And then build your business specifically around something in a change of trends. And I've always found opportunity there. I've always found that there's something that can be the new premise for a company or a product or whatever that is. And then from there, I don't know, we can get into the whole side hustle aspect of it as well. But I think that's always been a good way to try to find opportunity.
So to summarize that, is it safe to say, start with defining where you want to be in a longer period of time than what most of us are thinking? Think out 5 years and then reverse engineer your path to get to that point. And then from there, you're saying look for trends and opportunities that kind of lead to a predictable path of how things are going to turn out, or how you can fill a need in an industry or ride a new wave that's coming in.
I remember, that just brought up for me really quick. I remember when I started my company, I would say to people, staff, whatever, I'd say, in 5 years, companies are going to be approaching us. They're going to be trying to acquire us because we've built what they wish they were, especially specifically with retail, right? Retail, they get so caught up in the cycle of they buy it or they produce it, then they go sell it to REI, and then REI goes and sells it. But us coming in, we just had such a competitive advantage that I was like, they can't ignore this for more than 5-7 years before they're going to have to do these things and try to either acquire us, start a whole new brand, or they're going to have to, figure different things out because they can't compete. And, an opportunity like that, I think is a really strong indicator that you're onto something.
So that reminds me of probably what would be the third thing in our list. And that is, find some leverage. The leverage that you had was starting a direct-to-consumer brand in the outdoor space when there wasn't really much direct-to-consumer sales going on. And that allowed you to sell high-end, high-quality gear for a third to half less than what all the major brands were selling, right? So that leverage has been what has attributed to a lot of your growth and success, is having that unique thing that really set you apart and created some advantage.
Yeah, and from there we've also kind of worked on that in different ways. We can go and just compete on price, but we didn't, competing on price, because that direct to consumer was a price advantage. But a price advantage isn't an advantage that I would ever want long term. And we used it too much, and it ended up hurting the brand too much because we kind of get labeled budget, because price is the biggest indicator of quality. And but what I would say is to take it another step further is to say, okay, now we've got this advantage. How can we use it? And so now how we use that extra margin that we have is we build a better product, and it's still cheaper than retail, but we use that extra margin that we have to use fabrics they won't use. I can honestly tell you, there's a handful of fabrics and stuff that we use that they're like, yeah, we pitched this to Patagonia or whoever it might be, North Face, and it couldn't meet their price thresholds that they needed to meet store shelves. Whereas we're over here like, this is amazing. Like, everyone's going to want this, and like, we're stoked about it, and they just got priced out of the equation. And so we were able to use that trend, that competitive advantage that we found, and then take it even one step further to build an even better foundation and a better differentiator.
That's awesome. I love that model, and I tend to gravitate towards those type of brands who do that really well. You guys do it awesome in the ultralight backpacking space. I know I followed Kuiu for a long time because of that, as well as just, companies like Warby Parker, where you see how they're able to grow and create such a more stable business than what you have to deal with if you're constantly working off of purchase orders from thousands of retailers and things like that. So
it makes you feel very secure when you're direct to consumer, because we quote unquote like own each customer. We have, their contact info. And if I sell to Costco, let's say, I don't know any of the customers. I don't get the feedback from them. I don't get the repeat sales from them unless Costco gives me the repeat sale. And so you're renting customers, which is how it was on Amazon for us, which is why we have, ever since we really got started with Amazon, been working to improve every other sales channel to get us off of Amazon or to limit our exposure on Amazon, because we don't get to have a personal interaction really with Amazon customers like we do on our own channels.
Okay, that's awesome. So I want to go back to differentiating what makes a good business that's an exit strategy from your day-to-day job that you can start and go on, and then on the opposite side of that, what would be the difference between that good business and a good side hustle that someone could start and just use to supplement their income, but not plan on that taking over their lives? Because I know for me and for you, when we started our businesses, it did take over your life, your finances, your time, and everything. And we went all in, and that's good. But if that's not where your end desire is,
we were also younger.
You shouldn't go that direction.
We didn't have as much to lose back then.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have kids yet. We didn't have just established track record or payments. I don't know. We didn't have vehicles we had payments on. It was easier to risk it all. Every time you ask me a question, I think of different parables, I guess, but awesome. To me, my biggest thing that I really focus on is getting to cash. So many people come up with ideas. They're like, oh, I'm so excited about this idea. It's the best thing. It's going to shake the world, but they never actually prove the concept. And when I say prove the concept, that doesn't necessarily mean ask your friends and family if this is a good idea or not either. That means going out and collecting dollar bills, because we vote every day with our dollars, right? Like if we value something, we pay for it. And that is you voting for what you want in the future. So if, you want to take from the earth, let's say, like go support the brands that are just consumerist based. If you want to, support whatever it is, you vote with your dollars. And so coming back to that, like even if you don't have the product, go sell the product. When someone pulls out their wallet to pay you, take the money from them and then hand it right back and say, okay, I'll bring you a product in 3 months or 10 months, whatever it's going to take. But getting to cash allows you to move up the hill. And so that's kind of where this comes in, is every time I have gone further in the business, it's like I'm walking up the side of a mountain. When you're in the valley floor, you can see, but you can only see as far as the trees allow you, or you can only see as far as whatever it is the topography is going to allow you. But let's say I walk up that hill and I get a little bit of elevation and I turn around and look back. Oh, I can see over those treetops. Now I can see a little farther. And then I walk a little bit farther up that hill and I turn around again and I can see farther. And that's how business has been for me. Every time I just put my head down and get a little bit farther in the process, I can turn around and I've learned new skills, learned new pieces of wisdom. I've learned new strategy. I've been able to course correct. I've been able to say, okay, hey, I'm up on the hill over here. I actually want to be over there. So let me side hill for a minute. Even though I'm not getting up the mountain, if I keep going up this way, I'm going to get below a cliff and I won't be able to move on. By going to the right for a little bit and not necessarily growing, I'm going to have a clear path to get higher. And so that's always been my thing. So people are always like, well, how do I build a business like yours? Or how do I just get out of this day job or different things? And I would say it starts with a side hustle. Like, how are you going to bootstrap something to generate some extra income? Because with that extra income, you can then use that to invest in the next step. And you'll also learn something from that. You'll learn, hey, I don't like mowing lawns after my day job because I'm trading dollars for value or time, for dollars. And I'm getting, I'm losing on this side of my life. So, okay, the next time I want to build a side hustle, I need to build it different so that it doesn't just consume time. It can be more scalable. It can be this, whatever it is, the more you can free yourself up with cash and generating cash and use that to leverage the next step, the clearer those paths are going to be. People always see me, and it's actually easy to see because the very first, this has been a while. The very first product I think was a sleeping bag. But what you don't know is I also ordered headlamps. I ordered spotlights for coyote hunting. I ordered these different things and I tried those out and I lost. I didn't always lose my money, but they weren't the markets I wanted to be, and I grew from it.
Didn't see the opportunity you were looking for.
Didn't see the opportunity I wanted there, and so I pivoted and moved forward. But every time I did that, it became way more clear what I needed to do. So action is always going to be better than inaction, and planned action is always going to be better than just action. But if you don't know where to go to begin with, just do something and generate some kind of income or move the progress in some way, and everything becomes more and more clear the farther you move down that path.
Yeah. I like 2 points out of that. The main one being it's buyers or liars. Don't trust your mom saying that you're doing something great if she's not willing to pay for it instantly. If she's not your target market, you need to go talk to who your target market is and see if they'll buy it right off the bat. Because if they're just telling you it's great, but they're not buying it, they're probably lying. And then the other one is really just your willingness to prove the concept and try something out. I look at that first backpack that you guys came out with that was moderately successful, but you ended up with extra inventory and things. But you were able to take that and kind of gauge what the interest was and what your market was really needing. And now this new iteration is it out or just not quite out yet?
It's pre-selling right now, and it's pre-selling at a really strong rate.
Yeah, that pack is incredible. It's going to be really, really cool. And I like your mentality of just putting something out there, testing the waters, see if people will pay for it, and using that as your gauge for success rather than interest or just what people are saying on the surface.
Yeah, it's really unsexy though, because we live in this day and age where you just want the highlight reel, right? Like every company that like you truly value, it's a highlight reel. And what you don't realize is that to get to that highlight reel, they've done something else, or they've taken somewhere else, or you look at, for instance, in my space, I saw a company pop up, started basically the same time as me, popped up out of the ground and just started blowing it up. And I'm like, man, how do they do that? Oh, they've raised $30+ million in venture capital. So check number one. And then you kind of keep watching. You're like, man, they're doing this really well or this really well. And you realize, oh, this is like their third business. The founder has started multiple other businesses. He's learned all these different things. And so a company like that, it's sexy, right? They hit the ground running and they're just cruising, and you want to live up to that in every way. But I think that I could never, and so before I go to the next part, I guess, some people are like, okay, you should sell your business, and I'm like, well, I could sell my business to turn around and start the same business again because I love what I do. Like, I'm so happy with what I do. I don't know what else I would do if I sold this business. It would, and so then it's like, well, let's just stick our head down and keep going with this. And what I've learned through that process, because so many people cash out so quick, they'll build a business like mine, like, oh man, I can get an 8-figure sell out and I'll go do whatever. And they'll sell out. And then basically the value gets taken out of these companies. They cash out the value early. And by doing what I do, which is totally unsexy, like building a crappy product, years ago, and then coming back in and totally redesigning it and reshaking it up. It's not sexy, but it does create value. And you're able to develop something that you wouldn't be able to develop otherwise. But it's just raw, right? And we found a lot of success in that. Yes, every product that we release now has a new threshold. There's an absolutely new threshold that it has to meet that was never there before. But when I first started, some of the products we release now, like looking back, if I were to see them, I would just shake my head. I'm like, man, I thought that was a good product back then. Like, I thought that was a good product back then. I'm almost embarrassed of it. The prices were different back then. We sold those products for way cheaper. We were always an extremely good value. I don't ever go to bed at night thinking that I ever took advantage of someone or gave them a bad deal on anything. But I look at those products, I'm like, man, those products were so far from where we are today. But through that journey of improving our products, we've built this foundation that set us on a trajectory that I'm really excited about. We've learned a lot of lessons. We've had to learn a lot of lessons. I wasn't far enough up on that hill, right, to see the lessons I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And, but yeah, just through that process, it becomes more beautiful. And there will be a time, whether it's 5 years out or even next year, where people won't remember those first few years of the company, that I'm embarrassed to think back about now, like our old logo, right? Like, so you helped us do this new logo and it looks phenomenal. Like, we're stoked about it. We get a lot of good feedback on it. Then every once in a while, someone will be like, do you remember that first logo? And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I've had people, literally, so I'm a finance guy, right? And I took a free software online and I designed a logo. It looked like an owl and it had an O and a V in it. And I've had people, we surveyed people, 90% of people either saw the weird looking owl or the O and the V. No one saw both. The 10% saw both. I remember sitting at a supplier's factory in China, meeting with this head honcho who's running a, multi-million dollar factory. And he's like, but your logo, is it an alien? And I was just like, you're so embarrassed about it, really, but you just laugh it off. And I was like, yeah, we need to change it. And we just kind of go on. But, if I hadn't built that logo, though, I wouldn't be here where I'm at right now. And so don't get paralyzed by not having this highlight reel of a story. So much of developing, a truly great company is built on the back of failures and pivots. And, something goes wrong and you just grunt down and you figure out a way to make it right. And you pivot and you learn from it and you try not to make that mistake again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's in Jim Collins' book, Great by Choice, where he talks about when the Corsairs and the pirates would shoot from one ship to the next, they would shoot small rounds first in order to figure out trajectory, and then once they made a hit, that's when they would start to shoot cannonballs. And I think that's really important, is to make sure you're on target before you start spending the big bucks on the big artillery. I really like your mentality of keeping things small, and I really like that you held on to that logo as long as you did, and because for me it proves the point that action is valued much more than perfection. And that, I think, is where a lot of people get hung up with their side hustles or with starting this business that they've been looking at for a long time, is they get stuck in this whirlpool of paralysis by analysis where they want everything to be perfect. They want their logo and their brand to be figured out. They want their, all sides of the plan to be totally figured out before they sell anything. And you did the opposite of that. You focused on the product. You figured out what product would sell. You did multiple iterations on that product, and then you gathered everything else up as you went and made it work that way. And I think that's the best way to do it. For one, you end up with a product that's focused on the people that you're trying to serve, rather than a product that's conjured up in your mind that you think will be successful but isn't tested. But two, it proves that getting yourself out there and creating good experiences for people is more valuable than looking polished or totally finished. So,
yeah, I don't know how some of these other brands do it, where they have to put so much money and time into a product that's never been tested. It's never, a lot of our products we pre-sell, whether it's Kickstarter, we'll go pre-sell money there and sell the product before it ever gets here, and to validate things. And the longer you're in business, the easier it is to make a really educated guess. But it kills me when I like one of my, I was just telling someone this the other day, one of my least favorite things to do in my life. It gets like nails on a chalkboard. Like it just kills me to listen to it or to watch it. Because I'll walk around trade shows and I'll see people that will start a new business, and I'll stop and talk to the owner or whoever, and they'll tell me the 30-second pitch on the company, and I'll ask a few questions, and it becomes really clear really fast that they don't have a clue what they're doing, but they have mortgaged their house for this, or they have cashed out a retirement for this. And they have, in my mind, I'm thinking they've got a pretty close to 0% chance of success at this based off of the conversation I've had with them. But they've gone all in because they couldn't start small. They had to have that highlight reel. They had to come in with a whole line of apparel instead of just one piece of apparel, right? When I released apparel, I released one product as a pre-sale product. And that was it. And that product sold $1 million worth of that jacket before it ever was shipping to anyone, right? And so like that, you can do it that way, or you can go in and invest $1 million of your own cash to build out a product line that you have no idea whether people even are going to like it or not. And so there's a lot of value, I think, in doing it one way versus the other.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think these are all really good elements of creating a successful business. But where do you think the difference is in having a sustainable side hustle versus building a brand and a new career? What do you think are the main differences there?
I would say it's just your own dedication and desire out of it. I don't see a huge difference. If you're projecting it forward, you can easily see if you start a job that it's not scalable or it is. And so to me, if it's not scalable, I could consider that a long-term side hustle. But if it is scalable, then you're only limited by what you want out of it, right? So if you want to scale it to the moon, you can scale it to the moon. If you want it to take up little or no time, you keep it right there. That would be my biggest differentiator between the two. As far as, this just kind of popped into my mind, thinking about like, what's the best thing I could give someone who wants to start a side hustle? And personally, the biggest thing that I think has served me well is, one, I'm a finance major, so I understood the numbers and I watched the numbers and was on top of those. No matter what your background is, you have to budget, right? You have to know where things are at. I mean, you've seen it in your own lives. I'm sure the fathers and stuff that are listening to this podcast, if they don't have a team collaborative effort in their marriage or themselves, they'll end up at the end of the month with credit card bills rather than, positives in their bank accounts. And the same as with the business. You just got to stay on top of it. Whether you feel like you're proficient at it or not, you got to stay on top of it. But the bigger thing to me is, if you truly want to get out of your day job you truly want to start a side hustle, the absolute best thing you can do, in my opinion, is work on sales. Work on your own ability to sell. I, as a kid, was terrified of sales. I was like the introvert, didn't ever have a girlfriend, growing up all through high school. I was pretty much, a solo guy because I had friends, but I couldn't sell myself into someone wanting to date me. I felt like I couldn't. I was just very introverted. And I pinpointed that as a real weakness of mine. And so when I graduated high school, I signed up to go sell alarm systems out in Virginia Beach. And so I got on a plane right after high school. I flew out there and I knocked on the first door. I'd taken a sales class because I just knew it was important. For some reason, I just knew that it was important. Taking a sales class as kind of an elective in a business track I was in high school, and got out there, knocked on the first door, and I just remember I just mumbled, literally mumbled. The lady looked at me like, "Are you okay?" And I just walked off the doorstep because I was like so nervous about selling, and I just couldn't imagine that I could sell, but I knew I had to do it. So I'd go home, I'd study every day, then I'd go knock doors for like 10 hours a day and try to sell alarm systems. And I actually did it pretty proficiently. For the skill set and how my age and my maturity level and stuff, I feel like I did a pretty good job. But I came home from that summer and I knew how to sell. It just clicked for me. Suddenly I had girlfriends in college. I could get dates and I could have a lot of fun and I could, sell my way into job positions, and I could just do these different things that were really important to me. And when it comes to like even this business, right? Those initial products, just like we talked about, were not that impressive. They just really weren't. But I understood sales psychology. I understood, and I'm not someone who like wants to show up to your house and sell you insurance. I tried. There were people in college who tried to recruit me to sell insurance, as a career path, and I just couldn't fathom it. I didn't want to sell to friends and family and people I knew and be pushy and things like that. That just wasn't my buildup. But I was like, man, behind a keyboard, I can be a warrior. I can strategize and do all this. But anyways, really, what's gotten the business to where it's at is my ability to sell, right? Sales copy, understand the process, different things. And there's all different elements of sales. But when you look at a company, who makes the most money in that company? The presidents and the salesmen a lot of times, because they can quantify so quickly what they're worth. And so if you want to start a side hustle, maybe step one inside of your own business that you currently work at, can you start to sell things and quantify your worth and increase your net income there? On the side, let's say you want to mow lawns. Like mowing lawns is one thing, but like how do you get clients? Because you don't have to mow the lawns. You can get kids to mow the lawns, but you've got to collect the clients. So learning how to sell or market becomes a factor there. Whether you want to sell things online, maybe if you're not someone who wants to sell in person, but you want to sell things online, what makes something sell versus doesn't? Because you go to Amazon right now and search a million different products and find ones that are selling and ones that aren't. And you can look at the copy and you can see pretty quickly, oh man, look at how much better this copy is. Look how much better these images are. Look how much better this title is. So to me, if you want to start a side hustle, learn to sell in some capacity, or at least help the sales process in some way, because that's where you can drive that revenue and use that to build whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's great advice, and I definitely would echo that. I've been a salesman my whole career through all the different jobs that I've had, really, and it really does serve you, not only in bringing in revenue, but just in knowing how to communicate with people, how to find common ground with people and being able to do it. But when it comes to starting a side hustle or starting a new business, sales, like you said, I think should always be paramount. If you're making sales, then you can figure everything else out as you go. And if you can't sell it, you probably shouldn't invest in it.
Right.
So, and then too, I think you did kind of answer the second half of my side hustle question earlier in doing that reverse planning from 5 years out. And if you say, okay, I want to be in my own business by then you can plan backwards and decide how you build your business to go from a side hustle to a full-time gig. Or you can say, I've got a great job, but I just want to make this extra $1,000 a month or whatever it is, and then build your side hustle to match that. But I think having that really far forward planning mentality is really a good key to that. So
makes life a whole lot more clear. I feel like I've had to relearn this, but slowing down to sharpen the saw, it's just so true. And a lot of sharpening is skill set, but a lot of it is planning, like the amount of planning that I feel like I have to do now, managing the team and managing myself. It just feels so significant to stop working to plan. But it makes you so much more efficient, and it just gets you where you actually want to go instead of lifting that head up and not being anywhere where you thought you were headed.
Right. Yeah, I see that because you and I started Rugged Material a little bit earlier than you started Outdoor Vitals, but we started from very different places. You started Outdoor Vitals mirroring everything that you had experience doing with your previous job. You had some awesome testing ground there, but then you also were looking at it with this long-term perspective. When I started Rugged Material, I was just making the products and putting them online, and people were buying them and wanting them. And so I just jumped in and I did the Kickstarter. I had the first part of that right, where I had a really big pre-sale, and that was great. But what I didn't have was that long-term plan or that leverage that really made things work. So as things have progressed, it's become more and more clear the value of doing that planning up front, figuring out, what will make the difference for your customers, as well as figuring out what you want out of the business from the very beginning, and then working towards that. So
yeah, and that comes in stages. When I first started the business, a big, huge goal of mine was to get to $1 million. And, I kind of had a vision and things mapped out to get to $1 million. And then I honestly broke, how fast we got to that. I don't know, I think we hit that in like 2016. And, I think it was 2006. Yeah, it was. And that happened so quick. And then I kind of have to reassess. And so then it's like, okay, let's hit, in the next 5 years, let's hit 10 million. And then, now I've got goals for 10 years out from right now. But I would have never, like the 10-year goals I have right now would have never been, I feel like, what I started with. Yeah. But it's, you can reassess. So, set a goal that's out there, and it pushes you, and it gives you a clear path and vision. But don't set it so far out there that it feels impossible to you,
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your thoughts on business and entrepreneurship and the growth of Outdoor Vitals. And we'll have to have you on again to talk more about it in the next little while, so you can update us on the growth and changes and new plans.
Yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things going on over there, and I always enjoy talking about it. Obviously, it's a big passion of mine, but I'm a big believer that entrepreneurs are the one who are going to change this world and make it better, and so I just love talking entrepreneurship as well. So I hope that the listeners maybe could pull something out of this and go and change the world around them. So
definitely. All right, Tayson, I really appreciate you taking the time to share about entrepreneurship and about your business, Outdoor Vitals. Where can we follow you and engage?
Yeah, if you want to come and see what the business looks like now from where it ended up, just go over to outdoorvitals.com. You can see, how the products have grown. You can see the differences there. A great resource, honestly, is to go to our YouTube channel. Look at some of those old videos. Like literally, I leave them on there, even though I bet every other brand out there that's afraid of being vulnerable, right? Of every other brand that wants that highlight reel would have taken these videos down years ago. But go look at some of those videos I posted in 2014, sitting at a coffee table, on a bucket with some curtains behind me, with my phone's propped up on some pillows, and I'm recording for this YouTube thing, and but you'll see our product, and you'll see the differences that's happened there, and hopefully that's inspiring to you to see where you can start and hopefully where you can end up. And like I say, for us, I feel like the journey is just beginning. So go check us out, outdoorvitals.com. Go check out our YouTube channel. Just search for Outdoor Vitals. And, we've got a podcast too, where we talk about all sorts of things outdoors, whether it's tips and tricks or design processes. You can hear how we design product. There's lots of things on there. So, and that's Live Ultralight podcast, the Live Ultralight podcast. You can search for that. So
awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, happy to be on here. It's been a blast.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Tayson, for taking time out of your busy day to share these lessons with us. I agree wholeheartedly with you that entrepreneurship is a wonderful opportunity to change the world and to improve your life. And I hope that those of you who are listening got something out of this and can see a way to improve what you're doing in your work, or to start that thing that you've felt like you should start but haven't known where to go. If you got anything out of this episode, please share it around, and please subscribe to the Primed Fatherhood podcast wherever you're listening. And if you have the option, please leave a review so others can see that this is a worthwhile listen. And if you want to add to the conversation about this episode, or you want to connect with other focused and like-minded men, please join the Primed Fatherhood Facebook group. It's a private group where we just discuss anything and everything that has to do with being a dad and with challenging yourself to be the best dad that you can be. So please join us there. Thanks again, and stay primed.